Cool. I think we are on live now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Academy of Astrology UK. Once a month, me and Mandy and Marcus, we are going here to discuss about the recent transit, especially with the lunation. So today we will focus on the full moon on this weekend, and also we will talk a little bit about the solar eclipse in I think it's 25th of October. So, well, hi, Mandy. Hi, Marcus.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Well, so it is a busy month, isn't it?
This is a very busy month. It's an interesting month. Yeah. Where shall we start? Should we start with?
I don't know.
Well, because we've got this full moon coming up, haven't we? Full moon in Libra.
Yeah.
I wasn't here for last month. You guys discussed the new moon, didn't you, last month? The new moon in Libra. So maybe we should just hop straight into this upcoming full moon.
Yeah.
And then I think we'll pick things up as we go along, because there's quite a lot happening
Definitely.
this month.
Yeah. Okay. Let me show the chart. Here we are.
Oh.
So this is the Aries Libra full moon. Look very busy, to be honest. It's not just like a Sun conjunct Venus, opposite Moon, conjunct Chiron. That is like yay!
Okay.
And then we have, I think, the Pluto is going to stationary. It's stationary now. It's apparently stationary from today, and then until Sunday, it appears stationary, and then moves a direct motion on Monday. And anything else?
I mean, the big thing in this chart, I think, is the T-square with Mercury, Neptune, and Mars, right? I mean,
it is still active, yes.
Yeah, because it's still active. I mean, the point is, this being a full moon, it's separating, so it's improved. But Mars is still applying to Neptune. I mean, about to station, and that's a whole other thing that we'll talk about, I'm sure. But it's interesting because this is like this full moon, including that very wide T-square between Mercury and Neptune. Obviously, Mercury's gone direct again now, so a lot of the sort of snafus that happened while Mercury was retro are getting untangled, but in the process of that disentanglement, there's still a lot of confusion and there's a lot of irritation. So I've got like a micro example of that from today, where I sent a parcel containing some medicine to my mum and her partner right at the beginning of the Mercury retrograde. All of my other parcels arrived during Mercury retrograde, but interestingly, this is sort of a microcosm example of how astrology works. In my birth chart, my MC is ruled by Mercury and my IC is ruled by Jupiter. So the MC is your mother and the IC could be your father or your mother's partner. So of course it was all my other parcels to my patients arrived fine, but the one I sent to my family, that all went haywire. So the parcel went missing, and then the post office, all during Mercury retrograde, the post office said, oh, we can't find it, special delivery. So paid top dollar for it to arrive on time. In the time that it was missing, my mum's partner had a seizure because he didn't have the medication. So it was like kind of serious. And then the parcel has just arrived back on my doorstep today after being told a week ago by the post office that it had gone irretrievably missing. So, I mean, it's kind of great. The Mercury retro is showing that it's coming. It's the Mercury's direct. So all of that Mercury retrograde confusion has sort of got untangled, but you've still got this opposition to Neptune bringing in confusion, and this square to Mars bringing in, I could say from my side today, a great deal of irritation. It's just like, okay. And that's a small example of some things. I mean, I don't know if you guys, I guess one of the larger mundane examples might be lots of anxiety about the gas prices and fuel prices and stuff, and maybe
it's not only that.
Okay.
One example, more funny thing, is about our chancellor. He made his decision, so-called mini budget, Mercury in Virgo, the mini C. Then he have to take it back.
Right. Okay.
He made that mini budget. Yeah, he made that mini budget during the Mercury retrograde. And then once Mercury finished retrograde, he have to take it back because no one liked it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Specifically, he took back the part. He didn't take back all of it. He took back the part which, during a cost of living crisis, where obviously people are already struggling for money before this crisis, or who weren't now are, part of this so-called mini budget, due diligence wasn't done. He didn't pass it through the Office of Budgetary Responsibility. I think that's the right name for it. And also it was to offer tax cuts to some of the very richest sector of British society, to people earning over £1,000 a year, when I think in the UK the kind of average salary is something in the region of about 30 something.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, 40. They was going to drop taxes for them because of this Tory ideal of
slight failure to read the room there, possibly.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, but that's amazing. I mean, it's just it was interesting to me because obviously Mercury in Virgo very strong, and so but obviously. And I was listening to a podcast the other night, and the podcast that it kept glitching. And this was the day that Mercury was exactly opposing Neptune. The person doing this podcast was an astrologer, and they're like, "But why is this all going wrong? The Mercury's gone direct." And I was thinking, yeah, but there's that big opposition to Neptune. It just so it creates all this confusion. And I think probably by the sounds of what you guys are saying with the tax thing, disillusionment, and then you've got the Mars, which is the anger thing, the anger piece.
Yeah.
Of course, Mars in Gemini is hot air, isn't it? You talk about hot air. Oh, it's just hot air. When people talk a load of old rubbish and they have to go back on it, they don't think about what they're saying. And again, that causes that kind of confusion, that disillusionment, that disappointment, that kind of thing, that anger. So there's been a lot of hot air going around about, all of this that's been going on in British politics. I'm sure other countries are having similar kind of crises.
Do you know the word it makes me think of, Mandy, is bluster.
Bluster, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That kind of like, yes, we'll definitely. It's like the Mars in Gemini, like squaring Mercury. We'll definitely do this. We'll definitely, sort of. But actually,
you just remind me someone appear on TV.
Didn't think it through, did they? They just simply didn't think it through. Neptune got in the way, and they thought they were doing something. They probably thought they were doing something wonderful and amazing, especially with Jupiter there next to, in a kind of wide sign conjunction. They probably thought they were doing something something generous and fantastic that everyone was going to love.
To the rich people.
No, it's interesting. Jupiter, by the way, this is a bit esoteric, but it's not. It's just a slightly abstruse technique. But that by Anticyon, Jupiter's position right in this full moon is at 2801 of Virgo. So by Anticyon, Jupiter is conjunct Mercury at this full moon. So that's like a hidden conjunction between that retrograde Jupiter in Aries and Mercury. So that's an interesting one. So it would be actually configured in traditional astrology, even if you're thinking, oh, it's out of sign, it's still tied in with that configuration, but in kind of a hidden way, which is interesting because I always think Jupiter could be rich people, and this could be sort of anger over rich people and reversing the policy to do with, something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Even rich people were cross about it sometimes.
Yeah, they do. They do. All the bankers,
how much it backfired,
Oh dear.
All the bankers say, don't do it.
Well.
Don't do it. They said, no, this trust me. This has to go. We have to do this to grow the economy. And I was like, please don't do that. It's going to harm the economy. British banks drop. Sharply. Yeah, since the 28th of September, they was like, oh my God.
So interesting. And so obviously this full moon is like everything out on the table, like all this craziness is out on the table. And what's fascinating, that you use the word backfire, Mandy, and obviously I'm thinking Mars about to go retrograde. That's like backfire. It just made me think like whatever. And there's so much more. I kind of want to speak about Mars and Saturn trine, with both of them changing direction but I mean, maybe you guys, I feel like I've been monopolizing things a little bit. So is there other things to say about this chart that
it's an air grand trine, right?
Do you know what I didn't even notice that. I didn't even notice the Sun and Venus down there.
Well, I get some help.
Yeah.
Be honest with you, I cheating. Okay, that was because of Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday I had a podcast on Instagram with Fernanda Paida, And she pointed out there is an air grand trine in this full moon. So I don't want to
Okay.
take credit. It's
that's
a friend Fernanda.
amazing. Well, yeah, no, that is really interesting actually, because that will maybe tend to skew it more towards the constructive. I mean, because like it's a trine's arguably more constructive anyway. Trines between Saturn and Mars, not necessarily, like they're still kind of, it can be like bad things happening easily just as much as it can be. It can just as much. I mean, there's more constructive potential than with a square or an opposition for sure, but it can also be bad things happening easy. But I was trying to think about like one of the ways this could play out, and I was playing with the idea of like both of these are reductive principles, like Saturn is subtraction and Mars is division, and in air signs it's all about society and the spoken word and social rules and stuff. So it's kind of like you've got this trine between these two. This is kind of a good time, like particularly a good month, because I think because Mars is about to go retro and Saturn's about to go direct, they're holding this trine for like most of the month, I think. So this is like a good month for kind of like doing some social editing, like maybe kind of like that could play out in lots of ways. That could be like literally like having a Facebook cull, as in like getting rid of like people off your Facebook.
Are you talking about unfriend someone?
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Unfriend
whole groups of people. But I mean, just like doing some social editing on that kind of like slightly malefic Mars Saturn level. But it could also be revising, like if you said some nasty bits or you've said some things you kind of want to take back. It's kind of like revising your positions on social things and maybe editing those things a little bit and using the editorial potential of this trine to edit, and this could be edit from your thoughts, from the way that you express things. So say if you have a particularly negative way so I was listening to a podcast the other day about sort of how you self-talk, how you talk to yourself. So if you're really critical of yourself, if you're really down on yourself, that's really bad because that goes into your subconscious. This is a really good month for working on not only your self-talk. If you have negative self-talk, you can start to edit it out, but also how do you project that to other people? And if you've noticed in the past you've said some bits that maybe feel afterwards, oh, that was a bit much, that Mars in Gemini, bit sharp, you can kind of start to really think about that. How does it affect other people? What and I don't know, just it's a social editing trine, something about that.
I'll interject there because a big thing for me currently is an idea about, well, not an idea, it's actually something I am actually doing. Saturn wants you to do something, not just think about it. Obviously, we're thinking about our thoughts and we're editing our thoughts and all of those things, Marcus, that you've just talked about. But Saturn actually wants you to take action. It's a very practical planet, and one of the things that I've been working on at the moment is just speaking my truth and being authentic and getting my voice heard and having my feelings, just speaking about my feelings. If someone hurts me,
being direct about it.
I want to be more direct about telling them rather than what I've done in the past is the kind of a whole people pleasing thing. And the other thing I'll say about Saturn Saturn basically wants you to work hard and get things right. And if we're going back to this political situation that we've just been speaking about, Saturn in Aquarius is about the common people, right? That's one of the things that Aquarius is about. Saturn in Aquarius, it's like, okay, you've got to reset, you've got to get it right for the ordinary people, just what we were talking about, rather than getting it right for the people who don't necessarily need the help, or don't necessarily need extra money. And this is, as you've already alluded to, it's a full moon, and the full moon is the moon is in Aries, and obviously that's ruled by Mars in Gemini. That goes back to sort of minding what you say and how you communicate. And words are sharp with Mars. Words can hurt. Because you've got Chiron conjunct that moon there, we're reminded, I think, that Chiron not only heals, but Chiron wounds, and it shows you your wounds need to be healed, and wounds that are difficult. A lot of people a bit sort of one dimension with Chiron. It's the healing planet. It's actually the wounding planet that makes you heal when you necessarily can't, and then be in service to help heal others. So with that sort of very dynamic kind of Aries moon ruled by that Mars in Gemini, we're reminded that words can wound, and words can also heal. So that's kind of one, that might be one piece of advice for the way people, you know, you're following this process of speaking your truth, but doing it with some compassion, following this process of monitoring your thoughts and editing your thoughts. And we've also got the Venus in Libra conjunct the sun, obviously the other half of the moon, which is the peacemaker as well, which kind of says, well, okay, use those social skills, use a bit of charm, you know, so it's not just like, you were horrible to me and I'm not going to let you do it again. That's not going to work. You know, I kind of, you know, when you said that to me, I kind of felt, you know, it kind of hurt me. And I'm quite, you know, do you understand that? And I'd quite like you to sort of, you know, perhaps not say, you know, that more of that kind of thing, really. So that might be a little bit of advice for people listening if they're looking to sort of use going back off all of everything that you said, Marcus, as well. Some nice advice to follow during this kind of full moon, because full moons can be really full of energy.
bit full on, can't they?
Yeah.
No, I love that. Just two things, and then like the Mercury's trining Pluto, which really just emphasizes or corroborates exactly what you're saying. This is a good time for transforming. So as much as it's squaring Mars and opposing Neptune, so there's this potential for like word napalm to happen, you know, where, you know, you've got this trine from Mercury to Pluto, so you can really, it's like socially transforming how you can express yourself and how you can analyze things. There's some potential realizations here, and I like what you say with the Venus adding the sort of the Venus Sun conjunction trining that. Just so if you were to go back to the analogy of the Facebook coal rod, this would not be one of those like just going to coal loads of people on Facebook really harsh and sort of like, you know, people are like, what's going on with that person sort of thing. But it'd be more like, if you're going to do that, if you wanted to do a bit of social editing, this is a kind of, the vibe is you would like say something like don't be, you'd kind of like do it in a gentle way. It'd be done quietly, or it'd be done like in a way that's sort of just like, it doesn't have to be offensive. And I think this is a recalibration, but using some sort of like inner mental editing or external social editing that can be done in quite a tactful, diplomatic, transformative way, off the back of, I think, some mistakes that have been made in terms of thought or expression, which is the Mercury, Mars, Neptune T-square thing, something like that.
Yeah, I think it is it's pretty interesting because the sun in Libra and the moon in Aries, and this axis are usually about like ourselves and another person. It could be competition, it could be a relationship, it could be like a one-to-one relationship or cooperation. We working with other people, or one-to-one relationship. And then it is so interesting. Sun conjunct Venus is so nice and sweet, but another way, the moon conjunct with Chiron is like, ouch, that hurts. So I have that in my mind. Is a scenario is like maybe we are going to work with someone else, and then you don't want to refuse, and then or you don't want to do something, but you still don't want to hurt them, or something. Then you have to sacrifice yourself. Now you ask yourself, why? Why is me? Why me? Why should I suffer like this? I should, you know. That if we didn't realize that, we may just like I say, use the harsh word and explode. But this Sun, Venus, opposite the moon, maybe to help us to, and this air green trine just trying to, you know, cool it down. Say, hey, you don't need, you know, go that aggressive way, but we can still handle this. Maybe like Mandy says, you decide to speak it out, but with a, you know, a beautiful way or something, rather than just like, why are you doing this to me?
That totally makes sense. That
interesting. One more thing to say about Pluto is that it goes direct the day after the full moon, so it's pretty much ready to go on the full moon. I looked for when it was retrograde, when it went retrograde, and it went retrograde on the 30th of April, which was a new moon, which is really interesting because if you've got anything in late Capricorn or late in any of the late in any of this sort of cardinals, you're having a Pluto transit, right? And it's direct about 28 degrees, so you can see how slow it goes. It hasn't gone very far. It goes especially slow, I think, when it's retrograde. So there might be some connection between sort of, you know, the new moon, you can't really see what's going on at the new moon. So when it goes direct again, if you're having a Pluto transit especially, you're going to have another hit of that Pluto transit. And perhaps it might be a time, and we've talked about sort of wounding and healing and you know, sharp work and all these things that have emerged from this chart. So it might be about, you know, some unprocessed grief or some unprocessed trauma or unprocessed wounds might come up for expression and for healing. And I think everything that you said, Marcus, that advice about how to speak through any kind of pain is really, I think, valuable and definitely worth considering. And
yeah, I do see this as quite a constructive full moon potentially, actually. I mean, I agree, Mandy, with that completely. I think that's it's an interesting one. I don't know, I think I see it as constructive because of the Venus plugging in, because of the trine between Mercury and Pluto, and because of the trine between Mars and Saturn, which is just made a bit softer with that Venus trining both ends, and the sun to some extent, although the sun's kind of a bit weak in Libra traditionally. But it's like, I see there's lots of constructive potentials here. So there's like this initial hypersensitivity in terms of reaction, like that Aries moon conjunct Chiron, feelings hurt, need to do something urgently about it, and the Mars Mercury Neptune. But interestingly, these are kind of separating aspects, right? So Mercury, although Mars is applying to Neptune, but that Mercury Mars Neptune T-square, that's falling apart. The moon is moving away from Chiron at this full moon. So it feels like those triggers by the point of this full moon have happened, and this is a time of sort of starting to make some changes. So it's really cool what you're saying, Mandy, about sort of doing a reassessment of how you'd like speaking your truth. And I'm doing a similar thing. It's been occurring to me this week that there've been a few times lately where I felt I've overpromised, or I've said things to people where my heart's not in it, and I've been like, oh, you've got to be good with your word. Like, you have to be exact with your word. If you say the thing, you do the thing. That's the very in the air. That's the sort of Saturn Mars air thing, I think they're going on. It's really been like sticking in my head. So interesting. Anyway.
Wow. So it's in the beginning it's like whoa, that is quite interesting, because with that Mars and Neptune and a Mercury T-square, and we're talking about Mercury just finishing the retrograde, and during this time Pluto is stationary and going to go direction. In the beginning we think about it, it's that kind of but now after we slightly unpack this, it's not that terrible. I think we know how to handle it. But the following, should we move on to
let's do it.
End of month, the eclipse. This is big. Okay, here we are. This is the solar eclipse on the 25th of October, and I think someone is at 2 degrees Scorpio.
Okay.
Yep. Well, I have a quick look the Benedict Brady's book talking about star circle, and I think this one, if I remember, is the sixth house, and talking about the flavor of this eclipse is like have a strong impact in the relationship, especially a little bit forceful, little bit energetic. It look quite interesting, to be honest. During this time, we have lots going on in the sky, not only the eclipse. As we discussed, we usually talking about the moon wobble usually happen around the eclipse. The moon wobble time is usually happen when around when sun conjunct nodal axis or square nodal axis. So this time we will have a moon wobble starting from maybe like a third around just right before the eclipse and until mid of November.
And what exactly is a moon wobble, Rod? I mean, what does that mean?
So it's like during this time, I think the moon are more when you observe the moon, the moving is a little bit more, more obviously they're wobbling like this. So that's because I think the angle between the Earth, Sun, and the Moon. So astrologers tend to look about the moon wobble usually brings something have a strong impact, especially in the mundane level, especially like natural disaster or maybe like some political distribution or something. Usually it's like a magnified things happen. So really apply it in the personal level, but usually this is the time people should be more careful with a lot of impact. But this is not the only thing, because when we talk about our full moon, there is a Pluto stationary. For this solar eclipse, we have Saturn stationary.
Right. Okay.
That is pretty fun.
Yeah, so both of the sort of like, I would say perhaps most arguably most difficult planets stationing at either one. I feel like the full moon, I mean, just my 2p on that sort of those two stationing, that Pluto stationing seems to be more like that's a collective psyche turning point, or that's like some, I think Amanda, you alluded to this, like some psychological issue that happened earlier in the year. So you alluded to this station in April, some of that maybe resonances from that, like, and but slow shifting. So on a personal level, it can be some issues that have come up for you in April or between April and now, like some psychological shift happening. Whereas with Saturn, I always think it while it can be, it will have effects on your mental health or on the collective mental health and psyche. It'll be stuff in the world changing direction a bit, or sort of. But with Saturn, Pluto, you can't always necessarily predict, and it's kind of psychological stuff. It's like mass formation, changes in collective psyche, weird shifts in cultural paranoias and obsessions. With Saturn, it's like you can see the writing on the wall changing, so whatever it shifts it. So that's just my 2p on those two. But why did you think this one had a lot to do with relationships? Is it because Venus is involved, Rod? Is that why you said from Bernadette Brady's?
No, I think that's according Bernadette Brady's Sarah Circles that analyzed. She will pick up the first time when this Sarah Circle begin in the, I think it's 10,049, and according to that chart, it brings the flavor of whole series of the
right. Got it. So in other words, it's like this is one in a whole long string of eclipses, and the whole flavor of those eclipses has been relationship oriented. Because I'm obviously looking at this, we've got this south node eclipse with Venus in Scorpio. So I mean, the way I tend to think about that is south removes things or reduces them. It's a new moon, basically. So it's the beginning of something. Because it's an eclipse, it's a disruptive beginning. So it's a disruptive beginning that will remove something or things. And because it's in Scorpio sort of doubles up that signification of elimination, because Scorpio is a sign that likes to get rid of things. And it's with Venus there. And I always think of medical astrology, Venus rules like the expulsive facility. Interestingly, Venus rules the ability to get sort of think of it as the Venus as a lubricant or something. it helps things be removed. So it's kind of in this eclipse is kind of about letting go of something in order for there to be a new beginning, and that letting go might be a bit upsetting because it's Scorpio and because it's an eclipse and they're often startling. But we might think, I don't know what you guys think about this chart per se, but in terms of those themes, I've been planning this for a year. I've been planning to do a Marie Kondo job on my flat for ages, where tidying, getting rid of stuff. So I'm going to start it at this eclipse, like just bags. I'm going to start, you know what I mean? Just like literally purging my house of all the clothes. You start with clothes, which is Venus. So just, getting rid of stuff, because this is a great eclipse to initiate a new beginning through elimination. Particularly elimination of beautiful things, or some sort of redecoration process. So if you've got to redecorate something, you first need to maybe knock a couple of walls down, or remove some stuff, or sand some things down, or do you know what I mean? It's kind of like you've got to eliminate in order to begin. So if you've got any project like that, this might be a good time to do it. Sort of channel some of that eclipse energy into that.
I
know.
totally
Lovely.
agree. I totally agree, Marcus. Although I would advise you that with it being Scorpio and especially Venus is Scorpio, you're talking about clothes and
Yeah,
and items in your home, the assets. It's very sort of Venusian, isn't it? And
yeah.
second house stuff. But in Scorpio, it can be a bit brutal and go a bit too far. I would advise you to bag everything up
And
then
not throw it out just
and
yet.
not throw it out until the moon has kind of moved on, and maybe it's on the first quarter moon that you actually decide to take it down the charity shop or sell it on Vinted or whatever it is that you might want to do with.
That is good advice, Mandy. That is good advice. Actually. Yeah. I'll take that. On board,
Don't believe me. I mean, under similar sort of things, I've done the same thing, and then I thought, oh, I could really do that.
Yeah,
and it's very kind of me. I'm going like, oh yeah, I've lost a load of weight. I'm so slim. I'll get rid of all my old clothes that are in bigger size, and then very idealistically, I'm like, oh yeah, I've got nothing to wear now because it's not weight back on again. The typical female thing,
Well, no, but also, I mean, I think that's a fairly common human trope, actually. So it's a very good piece of advice. I mean, I don't know what do you guys think would be sort of is this? I thought this eclipse was below the horizon, but it's not, is it? It's actually above the horizon. So
above the horizon
in the UK, in London. So according to Ptolemy's rules, that eclipse effect would be happening about 5 months from, because it's somewhere towards the midheaven, so maybe 4 or 5 months. So October, November, December, January, February. So February, March.
Yeah, around that time.
Yeah, that's when the effects would be maximized. So that's interesting. In the UK.
I think, yeah, especially in the UK, because the technique you're talking about is location sensitive.
Definitely, yes. So it depends on where in the sky the eclipse is happening. If it's above the horizon, so the thing would be if it's on the eastern horizon, it's happening now. If it's in the middle of the sky, it's happening in about 6 months, and if it's on the descendant on the western horizon, it's happening in about a year's time. So these events, Ptolemy would say, would sort of be maximized, would be fully apparent by about 4 to 5 months from the time of the eclipse. So usually stuff starts happening around the time of the eclipse itself, but then it's like not unfolded until, like, you can't really see what it's about until about 4 or 5 months, and then it will go on for as long as the eclipse lasts. In I think a solar eclipse, he says, in years the process would take. So it's an interesting one. But does anyone have any other ideas about this one? Because it's a Scorpio one, so it might be emotional, it might be about getting rid of things. It's definitely it's a slightly paradoxical one. Scorpio, South Node, getting rid, but new beginning, because solar with Venus there. It could be, for some people, it could be about ending of relationships. It could be about ending of cycles, but I see this as an ending in order to make a new beginning.
Eclipses do, isn't it? Eclipses are ultimately about endings, and solar eclipse is when the sun goes out, basically. I mean, it's not a total eclipse, but where you can't see the sun. So it's a new moon in itself is dark. You can't see. There's no moon, but it also, there's reduced or eliminated light from the sun.
Yes,
but I mean, where you see the eclipse, you can't see the eclipse everywhere, but in the world, mostly they happen over the ocean.
Totally. Well, I mean, this is really, because if it was a solar eclipse on the North Node, I'd see that as being some disruption when the lights cut off, that then brings something in. So the analogy I often make is like, it's like your computer shuts down, you crashes, lights the eclipse, the lights cut off, and then it goes back on. And with a South Node eclipse, something's missing when it comes back on, and with a North Node eclipse, something's on there that wasn't on there before. And it really depends on what the whole chart is doing. If it's like a helpful eclipse, what's missing might have like cleared up a load of glitchy stuff and it's working loads better, or it might have erased a load of files that you really wanted. And with a North Node thing, what appears on your computer when it reboots could be some sort of amazing new program, or it could be a virus. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like,
yes,
it's what I see this is really eliminative in the sense that it's a South Node thing, but it's as you said, Mandy, it's basically a sort of new moon with that cutting off of the light. It's also sort of a beginning. But I mean, I don't know.
Well, what's interesting actually is that in the news today in the UK, so this is all very UK focused, but it's interesting astrologically, is that in the UK there is the threat of energy blackouts coming up this winter. You know, that's you know, that kind of, you know, very much you know, goes with what you're saying, Marcus.
It could do, couldn't it? I mean, blackouts is a very Saturn word, I think. So that's an interesting one. I mean, in terms of what the UK here, we've got like Venus is really caught up in this eclipse, and that's the 10th ruler. So that could affect, for example, a female prime minister. You've also got the 6th and the 5th, so that could be stuff to do with all sorts of stuff like I mean, there's as a medical astrologer, I go straight towards some kind of like sexual health issue, being some sort of new sexual health issue coming in, but then sort of being talked about being got rid of. I think the one really positive thing in this chart I'd see is Mercury in the 10th, very close to Speaker, the fixed star Speaker at 24 Libra. So that's quite a helpful constructive Mercury going on. So it's like while all this sort of purgy, get rid of stuff might be going on, some sort of disruption that's causing you to have to let go of something, a relationship or some stuff. Mercury is really helping with sort of constructive dialogue and positive thoughts. So I don't know what
in response to Marcus.
Yeah, in terms of sort of, you know, ideas, nice ideas, isn't it? Mercury in Libra, but in terms of sort of using the eclipse energy of Scorpio in a positive way, like you said, Marcus, it's kind of something's going to end, something's going to be purged, something's going to be potentially finishing, and it's time for new beginnings. And on a new moon, particularly as an eclipse new moon, it's really time, and particularly with the Scorpio energy, this is the time to research, to interrogate new ideas and to prepare rather than to actually start something new. It's time to sort of, you know, take a little bit of stock because everything isn't clear yet. You might not know because sometimes Scorpio can be about hidden and hidden emotional unconscious processes, as well as kind of passions, deep passions. But if it's kind of hidden unconscious processes that you're not quite aware of at the time, then acting, you know, you might be acting too soon, or maybe not acting, you know, doing, you know, I'm thinking of the idea of don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because we have to remember that we've still, Saturn is going direct the day after this eclipse. I think that's right, isn't it?
Don't act precipitately is what you're saying, Mandy. And that goes back to what you're saying about the house clearing. And I actually think amazing advice, particularly because the ruler of all of that, Scorpio, Mars, is still square Neptune and about to go retrograde. So exactly to your point, Mandy, about don't act too hastily. And like my little example of doing my little house clearing, you're like, don't just throw the bags out just yet, hold on to them a bit. I mean, by analogy, if some new thing, so say you have some sort of emotional crisis where your job is ending or something, or something causes you, I might leave this job, don't just announce that you're leaving straight away, or don't, you know, do the Mars in Gemini thing, because that Mars is squaring Neptune. So there's a lot of unclarity there, and Mars is about to go retro. So the decision that you make now may not be this because on revision, on second thought, you may wish to take a different path. So and remember, this new moon is sowing a seed for the beginning of a process that will only really fully begin or be fully underway in about 4 or 5 months, and then will carry on for a while. So I think that's an amazing point, Mandy. Don't be too quick off the block here.
And to add to that, just to what you said, Marcus, that Mars Neptune, but also the Scorpio eclipse, the new moon Scorpio eclipse, there are probably things going on behind the scenes that you don't know about yet, which is why another reason why that is such good advice. And we've also, remember, Saturn is going to be coming to the fore because it's going direct again. We've still got the Saturn Uranus square, so that's unpredictability with your isn't it? So it's hard to predict on this chart. We can see sort of themes and themes, and we can kind of see, we can apply what solar eclipses mean and what these transits mean, but it's hard to predict, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we could
Caution.
say caution is absolutely. I mean, we could say like on a UK level that some things might be happening based on whatever, but agreed. So caution with this one, and just so it's not to say if you have an idea to do some sort of clear out or releasing of something, that the thing is, if something does happen that is disruptive, and it does look like something's coming to an end, and you might have to let go of something, whether that, as I say, be a Venus thing, a relationship, or a lunar thing, like something that gives you security. On a national level, it might be insecurity about food, about luxuries, about luxury goods, about all the things that make life pleasant and bearable. There might be all this panic going on, which we know what that's about those things perhaps becoming unattainable. So people are like already talking about, oh, we'll have to cut this down, we'll have to cut that down, we'll have to not do that, we'll have to not do that. Maybe, but at this point in time, at the end of the month, while those things are coming in some form or another, we don't actually know exactly which way the axe is going to fall, what ways. So it's just like, okay, have that in the back of your mind, but just don't, caution, as Mandy said, and just wait and see a little bit, and have that little idea that will be something that will have to be let go of, and that will start a new beginning, and it will be okay. But the lunar mansion on this, because I always look at the lunar mansion in tropical lunar mansions. I think it's called Al-Iqlil in the Arabic, and if I remember correctly, it's about security. It's about looking. I'll find the book, because it's about looking after your protecting your possessions or something, and it's also good for keeping things secure, like protecting your possessions from theft or something like that. So there's something about what you were saying, Mandy, that I think really rings true to me on the basis of that, just of like caution.
Cool.
It's a very Saturnian word, by the way, isn't it?
Yes.
And also quite Scorpionic as well. That's what Scorpio is very cautious about its feelings and where it puts its energy, right?
Definitely. And about strategy. So so
strategy, that's a good word. Strategy, planning, research.
And the 17th mansion, Al-Iqlil, the name of it is the Crown, and it might alert us to the possibility of impending loss, which can, however, with prudence be avoided. Another Saturnian word there. So all right,
prudence, I like it.
That's so interesting. Wow, what a month. I mean, it's not all that bad. Sometimes when we look at the chart, sometimes can be, if you don't really go dive into it, you probably just like, oh my god, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. But when you look at, it's how it unfolds. We never know, like Mandy and you say, we never know how it's going to unfold. But the symbol is there. We may know what direction and how we going to experience. Before we finish, I have something to show you, and I want to remind all our audience, because, well, it's not only Mars start retrograde from end of October until the March. This is a huge thing. And during its retrograde, another things happen on Mars too. Let me show you the picture. It's quite interesting.
Oh yes,
I think
I know.
Mandy know that it's about the out of bound.
Mars out of
you probably
bounds.
all heard about it. Yes, it's about out of bound, and that is. I will just show you the graphic about it.
Oof.
Here. So this is the declination, and then from October, I think around something like 22nd-ish, the Mars is step into the outer bound. So during this time, you can see that when that red line, all above the 23 degree 26 are the time of Mars outer bound, and that means it lasts until May, even after Mars finish the retrograde. So until May, Mars still out of bound, and Mandy, could you give us a little bit of idea, simple idea, because I know Mandy study a little bit about the out of bounds.
So out of bounds, it's to do with declination, which is quite a technical thing. But when Rod said it goes above 23 in declination, because that's the idea of, planets go around the sun like that. They don't just go like that, they go like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's declination. When it goes up and down as it goes round and round. And when it goes higher than this 23 degrees or lower than this 23 degrees, it happens at the other end of the scale as well. It's known as
this one. Yeah.
It's known as and out of bounds. The moon is the most common to go out of bounds. I've got an out of bounds moon in Aquarius, which apparently makes me a weirdo, but I'm happy with that. but an out of bound planet, it is literally just, it's like its chains have been taken off and it's kind of free to do what it wants to do, for better or for worse.
Yay!
Right? So, in a nutshell.
I didn't hear about for worse.
So think of all the Martian things, the good things, the desire, the energy, the action, the asserting yourself, you're getting things done, you're sort of fighting your battles in a really good righteous way, or all the Mars stuff was having a fight for the sake of it, and that kind of thing. All of those things are possible with the Mars out of bounds.
Did you say it's above 22 degrees?
23, isn't it?
23.
Above
23,
23.
23, 26.
Okay, mine's just natally out of bounds then. So I'm a natally out of bounds Mars
I'm not
person.
surprised.
Really?
Why am I not surprised?
Wow, see.
In a good way.
Yeah, okay.
In a good way.
As in like go your own way, don't tell me what to do kind of vibes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's one of the things. And you are an Aries sun as well. So I mean, come on.
Kind of
Yeah.
Scorpio rising, right? I hope you don't mind me sharing
No,
that.
no, not to, I mean,
some Scorpio rising people are very, as many
got,
I thought some Scorpio
no,
don't
don't forget,
I've got that.
I think the fact that I've got Uranus conjunct the ascendant makes a big difference. It's just like,
Gotcha.
I don't care. It's like, whatever.
Well, I think we should rename our team as Out of Bounds.
What have you got out of bounds, Rod?
Mars.
Mars as well.
And the moon.
Mars and the moon.
Okay.
Moon, Mars and moon. Oh, you're the glue that holds us together then, Rod.
Yes. Well, we already know that. I mean, that's
yeah.
But it's an interesting one, mate. So what do you think that would mean, like, for the world or for things in general? Will things just be a bit more unpredictable or
Yeah, unpredictable. And Rod, how many is this out of bounds? I assume it's not all Mars in Gemini. It's Mars in Gemini, Cancer, Leo as well. Am I right? It moves through
Mars in Gemini, Cancer, because after March, I think Mars will move into Cancer. So I think it's around the Mars in Cancer. Let me check it out anyway.
So we have to sort of bear in mind the sign that Mars
is here.
Exactly,
we just talked about Mars in Gemini.
Yeah.
Mars in Gemini, that hot air and saying things that you don't mean.
Yeah.
There might be
all the stuff we talked about.
A lot more aggressive bluster. Which
is
not really what you want when there's a threat of nuclear war and there's an actual war going on.
No.
But there's going to be more of that aggressive bluster, I think. But it's interesting that for a lot of that time, Mars will be retro in a trine with Saturn and then in a square with Neptune. So it's just like a lot of that bluster will just be BS, or will be like that there'll be sort of, I know what the trine with Saturn will do with it. I think it's just, I mean, what do you guys think on that one? Is it going to be?
I think it still have the potential of a diplomatic way to negotiate,
to kind of stabilize things a little bit.
Yes, or he just play on the, it's not really an attack like what they say. Maybe it's just like, maybe he's not drop a nuclear bomb, but he attack nuclear plant. It's like, well, it's an accidental.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, I think all of this will, well, who knows? I mean, on a mundane level, who knows? But I don't think, I haven't seen anything in any mundane charts yet that makes me think we're under imminent nuclear threat. But I have seen things that make me think that people are talking about it and thinking and afraid of it, and kind of, So
then Mars in Cancer suggests protectionism. It suggests more defensive actions than aggressive actions.
Although speaking as a Mars in Cancer native, it can be like, I think Mars in Cancer can go either way, right? Because there are natives who are very aggressively protective of their family, and then there's like the mafia people, as you say, protectionism. There's
that's true.
Do you know what I mean? There's people
that are
literally crazy, like literally crazy, because Mars in Cancer often feels weak. So overcompensation and also no boundaries. Mars in Cancer, no boundaries. It's like anger with totally misdirected anger. I'm always very envious of my Mars in Scorpio friends and Mars in Capricorn friends, because they really focus their energy in amazing ways, and I'm just like, wow, mine's just like totally like, getting angry with the toaster. I mean, what's that gonna do? Do you know what I mean? It's just like it's like, anyway.
I
think that's good insight.
It's a very interesting discussion that we talk about the Aries full moon, and then we look at the eclipse. Well, so don't be afraid. There's still a lot of potential. Things can go either way, but do our best. I mean, but
nothing goes on forever, as we know. That's the beauty of astrology. Exactly. We know that there's cycles, and then there's more cycles, and prevail.
Yes,
and I think the two things that we talked about that were really, I think, Mandy, your point about the eclipse and just preparing to release things, but being cautious about taking action and just waiting a little bit before you do anything. That was awesome. And then the other thing about that sort of like this being a good month, I think, for a bit of mental editing and restructuring how just like social editing, like rethinking how you might express yourself, and getting rid of, because Mars and Saturn are both eliminative in different ways, getting rid of ways of expressing yourself or thinking that are potentially harmful or not useful, which is Saturn. And that can be immensely constructive. This is a really good month for doing that, because Mars is about to go retro. So it's an opportunity and holding that trine with Saturn as Saturn goes direct, it's an opportunity to really recalibrate if you've, said or done things that are a bit off, or just any thought processes that you have that might be a bit wonky. I think.
Perfect. Great.
Okay. So, Mandy, you want to add anything?
That's it, really. Great advice. I think this has been a really good session, and hopefully everyone listening has taken something positive out of it, because even though it looks a bit bleak, when you start getting to it, you can see the opportunities.
Definitely. Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone. Before we go, I have a few things to announce. The first thing, next week is our World Scope Mountain astrology discussion, and we will focus also on the eclipse chart, but also we will add a little bit about the Brazilian election, I think, because it just happened. The first round was in the 2nd October, and no one wins. So we will go, the Lula and the Bolsonaro both go into the second round. That will be interesting. So next week, I think Mark, Leanne, me, and Louisa will all join, and we will talk about the eclipse in the mountain label. Also, from 26th of November, we are going to help everyone to prepare 2023, because we know that 2023 could be interesting, because there's especially in March, not only Mars stop retrograde at that time, also Saturn will move from Aquarius to Pisces, and then Pluto will move from Capricorn to Aquarius. So for prepare this, we prepare 4 different sessions of a webinar, and each session very interesting. Each session we have 2 astrologers going to talk about some topic, and then between them they will have an interesting discussion, and then we have Q&A. So on the 26th of November, we have a Monday, and the join with Monday is Dr. Lee Lehman, and then they were talking about so that would be very interesting to talk about the Pluto in Aquarius and Saturn in Pisces. And on the 17th December, there will be Ling Bell with Fernanda Paiva. And then on the 14th of January, that's Darby Costello with Alejo Lopez. And then finally, on 25th of February, we have Christine Skinner and Liam McCrafty. Christine will, of course, from the financial level. That would be very, very, very useful.
Really
a lot of tips today, because today I teach I translate for Christine this afternoon. Oh God, she give a lot of important data about the financial. Watch out this, watch out that, watch out that. So useful, so useful. So if you are interested, I think I will announce this soon, and then I will release the enroll on the enroll page, and so you can click it, and then choose the date you want, or you can join all the 4. If you couldn't miss any one of these, they are all fascinating. So please join us from the 26th of November, and then next week is our Worldscope Mountain Astrology discussion. So, well, thanks everyone for watching, and then see you next time. Bye.
Have a good month, everyone. See you next time.